Behind the cypress fence and dense foliage lies a portal to another era. Welcome to LSU's Rural Life Museum. The idea was to preserve Louisiana's rural history by restoring and preserving the traditional or vernacular architecture of rural Louisiana. It's the only open-air museum of this type that highlights what it was like for the working class of 18th century Louisiana. Museum Director David Floyd.
It really represents the history of 99.9% of the population. Most people did not live in those big houses or on St. Charles Avenue. They lived in farms and plantations, and they basically really dwelled and thrived in a time in which life was very hard.
David Nicolosi is the Registrar Conservator of the museum. He demonstrates period blacksmithing techniques. He says the plantation blacksmith was the ace hardware of the day.
Any of the tools that needed to be worked on, like if you had plowshares that needed to be sharpened, this is where they would bring them. If you had any kind of other work, whether they needed to make tools, they could make the tools and make the tools that you're going to need to do any kind of the work on the plantation.
LSU's Rural Life Museum is one of the oldest museums in the state that interprets slavery. It features several exhibits, including these slave cabins, and inside, African art and artifacts. Floyd says the contributions of 18th and 19th century African Americans changed the history of rural Louisiana.
Not everybody that was of African descent in Louisiana was a slave. And there was a large population of free people of color. And they were allowed to have businesses, and they made furniture, and they made wrought iron, and many of them changed agriculture totally. In fact, one gentleman, Mr. Rishu, actually saved the cane industry.
There are thousands of artifacts of the period featured at the Rural Life Museum, including this carriage, which is the first incarnation of the Yellow Cab Company of New Orleans. The LSU Rural Life Museum preserves the story of the past for those of us who look to agriculture's future. For This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm A.J. Sabine.